So where were we? We were talking about Caleb Williams. All right. So Emmanuel Acho says that at this point, out of the national spotlight, Caleb Williams should sit out the rest of the season. This is not unheard of, as we have seen many guys in the past sit out bowl games when they get to the end because they know that they're going to be a major pick in the NFL. And at first, I thought, of course he should think about this because he needs to think about his future with the NFL. But then the other take that I heard was, well, wait a minute. NIL has changed the calculus on all of this because Caleb Williams theoretically is making a good amount of money to play
millions
at USC, millions. And the other expectation is, hey, now we're paying you the name, image, likeness to be here. So in theory, you are not some unpaid student now. You are almost an employee of the university at this point. And so he's almost, I don't want to say incentivized to go out and play football, but because of the NIL money, it's more likely that he's expected to play football. And I hadn't considered the changes that NIL made to all of these things when these guys are thinking about what they're going to do. Because beforehand, when you're not getting paid, you need to make a business decision and think about your NFL earnings. But now it's not that way. And there are college football purists. I don't want to call budget purists, but he sees this and worries that this is where people want college to be, that they want to make it an afterthought, that you shouldn't be playing. But I wonder if NIL will stave that off a little bit.
Well, I think it would be a scary precedent to set if your top players tap out once any sort of, a shot at a championship or whatever their season goals are no longer attainable. But what's also scarier in some ways is that what if Caleb Williams goes to whoever the decision makers are on this with USC and says, hey, if you want me to play the rest of the season, I'm going to need $1 million more or something along those lines.
Yeah. Very possible. I mean, and I don't think I think it's too early for Caleb Williams. Because here's the thing. If Caleb Williams sits out right now, the last two sample sizes that NFL scouts get are probably two of his worst. So you definitely don't want to have that be the last film that you leave.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think you're right there as far as he wants to get himself back on track a little bit and show that, hey, this was just a blip on the radar. There are people that have pointed out a lot of holes in his game, that it's almost like he intentionally bypasses what seems to be the natural read on plays and tries to intentionally get off platform and make highlight reel plays when he wouldn't necessarily have to do that if he just played within the framework of the offense. But that's something they'll have, whatever, people smarter than me can work that out. But another point I think worth mentioning is that it's very obvious, I think, that a lot of our viewers had to step out for a minute and go lay their money on FanDuel. They had to step away to go put their money down on James's pick, I think.
It's a good question from Mike in the chat about NIL contract require of him. I don't know, actually, if there is a contract that comes with it. I don't know if there's some legal requirement that any player that gets money from the university for this has to do with their play. But I do wonder if it's more of an unspoken thing where it's the university is saying, okay, we're now giving you money that you've not received in the past. And for Caleb Williams specifically, like not every NIL athlete is this way because there are guys who are making money at, NIL money, but they're not making huge money. It's probably enough to cover expenses for them in some way. But Caleb Williams, guys like that, they're making millions of dollars. And I think there might be an unspoken expectation of them from administrators and decision makers that are saying like, look, man, this is kind of what you're here for now. Like we're basically paying you to come here to do this. And the talking heads adjusting their thoughts on that. I mean, I don't know how many talking heads, I guess, are still anti-NIL at this point because it's just the reality of it. But I do wonder if many people are going to now double down more on guys that are leaving because of this fact. Whereas before, we would give answers like, well, you've got to be dedicated to the team and all these different sort of old school things that people cared about that don't really matter as much anymore. I'm not saying that they shouldn't, but they don't matter anymore. So I think that it seems to me that like the media narrative has changed to where it's like, okay, You need to go out there because you're getting paid. But I do think a lot of people would also not fault him for leaving, but not this early.
So that's interesting. I wonder if there is a contract. I think that even like maybe legally, it could only include things like you're being paid X amount of dollars to have this many appearances at these places, sign this many autographs. Things that are selling his name, image, and likeness, right, to promote businesses or whatever. I don't think there could be anything in there about like any qualifiers that say you have to play in X amount of games, or finish the season, or make these different reach these different achievements. Like it's not incentivized, I think, through play. I don't think it can be, and I might be mistaken on that. But I think isn't the straight up pay for play? I mean, we know that's what's happening, right? But I mean, isn't that technically illegal? Possibly. Like I said, I would assume there's a contract, and I think Mike just put in our comment talking about that. But I don't know if it can be directly correlated to play.
It can't. But think about it being an advertiser, right? Because he's in the Dr. Pepper commercials, I think. If he doesn't play,
right. Well,
he loses that notoriety.
Is that money all up front too? I want to know, like, or is it spread out? But because I would think he would have more of a leg to stand on legally if they were to stop paying him if he didn't play, then they would have to recoup money or stop paying him if he didn't.
Yeah.
From just a purely legal standpoint, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I don't know. There could be there's like probably the legal part of it. There's like the moral part of it. And then there's what the reality is. And I don't know like what's actually happening.
Well, like Mike's kind of alluding to there at the end, I think that if it is not related to play, which it probably shouldn't be legally, and he doesn't play the rest of the season or the last couple of games, that's going to impact future NIL deals, right? Because I don't think they're going to be able to they could get creative maybe about how they put the language in there, but I think you could see that, and maybe they'll do shorter termed contracts, like a month by month or something, so where like you don't have to re-up them if they choose not to play and hold out or whatever. It'll be interesting, because we're still in the infancy, right, of this NIL thing, and so it's kind of going to be fascinating to see how it all unfolds over the next few years.
Well, and these are those like unintended consequences of things that, as we talk about, sound great on paper, and then you kind of work through what actually happens with them. And I'll be curious to see what happens coming bowl time. That will be, I think, the real key. Like, if you're not in the conversation nationally, what do a lot of your best players do if they feel like they have an NFL future? Because Caleb Williams, to me, is an outlier in the fact that his NIL contracts and money probably are closer to what he would receive in the NFL, at least on a rookie deal, depending on where he gets drafted. But a lot of these kids that are making NIL money, they're still going to probably make out better signing an NFL contract. So I think it'll be interesting. But